Adriatic Sea, monitoring radar emissions. And I'll leave it. I'm sure we have at least one spook listening to us. He's going to email them and correct me on this, but essentially what these planes do is they want to know about changes in radar behavior. So if there's a flurry of activity, well, maybe that means something. We can try to suss that out. Or maybe they're building new radar installations. Well, maybe that means something too. Maybe they're building an airbase somewhere, God knows what. And best of all, a whole new type of radar. If they detect one of those, like let's say they installed a new Soviet air defense system, for example, that's going to have a radar that's going to be attached to it. NATO's probably going to want to know about that, right? Yeah. And, of course, they're going to want to test the radar, and really they have to. And, of course, you want to have an asset somewhere, whether it's a plane, submarine, something. And that's one of the things submarines don't do. A lot of people don't realize that, is they just hang out undetected off enemy shores and just sniff radars and stuff like that.
Just chill underwater.
Yeah, just sort of chill, keep an eye on things, and just see what what radars they're lighting up and whatnot. But according to what I've heard, Argo 16 was a little bit more than a radar detector. It did some other special ops missions, and it makes a little bit of sense because you can't do the same thing every day with a spy plane, because then the Yugoslavians get used to the idea that Argo 16 is going to be hanging out off its shores
between the hours of 2 and 5 p.m. every day.
Yeah, and so, they're just not going to send you anything useful if you do that. So you got to mix it up a little bit.
Or they're going to spoof you even worse.
They can do that too, yeah. So they mixed it up a little bit for Argo 16, apparently, and so it was sent on missions to transport armaments, ferried special ops guys around Italy, and it gave the occasional PFLP terrorist a ride to Libya. More on that later.
Okay, I was going to ask what that is.
PFLP, and actually, PFLP is Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine.
So PLO?
They sort of became affiliated with the PLO later. It's a complicated
thing. That whole area is really complicated, and I know I'm probably going to pepper you with a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, I don't even know if the PFLP is still around, actually. Oh, Devin, what's the question?
Are they actual terrorists, operating outside of the law?
Yeah.
Suicide, killing?
Yeah, the PFLP was...
or are they guerrilla warfare?
They were more terrorists. They were sort of oriented towards hijacking airplanes.
Okay.
I would say that compared to what we call terrorists today, they were pretty civilized.
Okay, but still created terror to inflict change.
Yeah, I mean,
to achieve a goal.
Yeah,
they
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't.
But for example, they hijacked 4 planes in September 1970, which I might mention a little bit later on.
Okay.
They hijacked them from Europe, took them to Jordan, and parked them in this desert airfield called Dawson Field, where they let most of them go, kept about 60 of them hostage for a long time, and then eventually evacuated them, blew the planes up, and this was a huge deal. I mean, this was considered ultra horrible terrorism. But all the hostages eventually were released unharmed.
Okay.
And so by the standards of today, that was pretty damn civilized, really.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody got killed.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't just calling,
we weren't just throwing the term
groups
around.
Of people, terrorists. So that's fine.
Well, they were certainly called terrorists at the time.
Okay.
But, but they almost make me nostalgic for the old days of terrorism, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
right.
Anyway, so back to Argo 16. It was based in Italy.
Hey, I have a question, Joe.
Yeah.
Why does the script have a question for me to ask, what is Italy?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, it's a place where they keep the Italians.
Some of us have escaped.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Italy is a country on the south side of Europe. It smells like a boot.
It's shaped like a boot. It doesn't smell like a boot.
Well, some days it does smell like a boot.
I'm sorry. I misread the script. I'm sorry. Okay, so it's shaped like a boot. Okay. So that's Italy. And, of course, it is right across the Adriatic Sea from Yugoslavia. And, oh, by the way, this is our mystery tie-in for this week. The Adriatic Sea has also been proposed as one of the many possible sites for the lost city of Atlantis, and I'm not lying.
I believe it.
Somebody has seriously proposed the Adriatic Sea. Atlantis is down there somewhere. And, of course, along with 24,000 other possible sites. There's a lot of them out there. And, of course, Argo 16 wasn't just anywhere in Italy. It was stationed in Venice. Yeah. Which, I don't know. Have you been to Venice?
I have.
Yeah? What do you think?
It was nice. It smelled kind of like a boot.
Kind of like a boot?
Yeah.
Did it really? Okay.
Giant rats. Huge
Giant
rats.
How big are we talking about? German Shepherds?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Good
You
place to
remember
take a
Princess
shotgun.
Bride? That size.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Awesome. But yeah, I hear Venice is pretty. You never see those in the
beautiful.
postcards, do you?
No.
No, I've seen pictures. It looks pretty friggin' awesome. I got to go there someday soon. But anyway, for those of you who haven't heard of Venice, it is the city that floats. And actually, it doesn't quite float, but it's kind of.
It's
in the
actually
middle.
kind of sinking.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Slowly sinking.
Yeah, the city that almost floats. And believe it or not, Venice has an airport, which, believe it or not, is not actually in the floaty part of the city. It's about 3 miles north on dry land.
Can we use that term regularly from here on
Floaty?
out? Yeah.
Yeah, floaty. I like
that.
Yeah. And so the actual city of Venice is of course, much more than just the little floaty part. It's a bunch of, most of it's on land, dry land. At 7:30 a.m., November 23rd, Argo 16 took off from Venice Airport with a crew of 4, and the plane was aloft for around 2 minutes heading west. And I'm assuming that because the standard climb rate for the DC-3, as far as I can find out, is about 1,200 feet a minute.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And so the plane was reported to have been at an altitude of about 2,500 feet when something went wrong. So that gives them a little over 2 minutes in the air.
Sorry, you may have said this, but I may have missed it. The DC-3 is what Argo 16 is.
Yeah. It's,
okay.
And I
Just
said
wanted
it was
to make sure.
I said it was a C-47, so let's clear that up. The DC-3 was originally the plane that the C-47 was based on. The C-47 is a military version of the DC-3.
And there's variants that have passenger door. There's variants that have a rear door. There's variants that have the tow hooks on the rear to pull gliders. There was a whole slew of versions.
Sorry, I just heard you use a term for a plane that I hadn't heard yet, so I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, so the DC-3, C-47, kind of the same thing.
Okay.
And it was a really reliable plane, and they made tons of them. My understanding, about 16,000 overall were built.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them were built. Yeah, and about 10,000 or so of those were for the military as a C-47. And, of course, Argo 16 was about World War II vintage, which would make it about, 3 decades old around the time of the crash? Roughly. But assuming it was well maintained, it should have been totally reliable in 1973. Planes aren't quite like cars. As long as they're maintained, they can last a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the engines are maintained and it doesn't suffer any major mechanical malfunctions, they're typically serviceable.
Well, yeah, for a long time. Argo 16 took off, reached an altitude, like I said, of about 2,500 feet. Something went wrong, which caused it to suddenly lose altitude really quickly, and it crashed in an industrial park about 6 miles west of the airport. And they do have industrial parks in Venice, apparently.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
You don't see those in the movies.
Those are also not on the postcards.
No, they're not on the floaty part, so they don't count as much.
Yeah, exactly. So there's our mystery. What caused Argo 16 to auger in?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a quick little mystery. So this is going to be a short episode?
Oh, totally short. In fact, we're almost done.
Right.
A couple
so
of
we
fast
have
series, and then
5 more pages of script.
Only 3 more. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're fine. All right. So theories, and of course, you guys feel free to chip in with any theories that you might have. These are just a few of the ones that are out there.
Oh, I've got the book.
You got the book? Uh-oh.
We're going to sell that thing. I swear to God. We'll auction it off somewhere.
It's taken 3.5, almost 4 years, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. We got a while to go.
Well,
just
write bigger.
Maybe I'll just scribble more in it.
Yeah, no,
I'll write stuff and then Sharpie it out.
Yeah, no, leave it with me, and I will scribble all kinds of stuff in it. So yeah, by the time you get here next week, it'll be mostly full. Yeah.
So first theory?
So theory one.
What's our first theory? Our first theory is pilot error, which was the conclusion of the original inquiry. They had an inquiry, of course, and had. The inquiry, of course, has been reopened more than once. This has actually been batted about and talked about in Italian politics for quite a long time now.
The crash of Argo 16?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a big national thing.
It's a big controversy there. Yeah. But the original inquiry concluded pilot error. And this is kind of a tough one because, frankly, almost all the documents for this mystery are in Italian. And Google Translate, while it's not bad, it's not exactly ideal.
The other problem with all the documents is that they have slowly disappeared over time. That is one of the biggest complaints I have seen in the reading when you go through. It's like there's all these officials who want to investigate and are furious because stuff is just literally missing.
What's going on with that, huh? Yeah.
That's why everybody
things
sniffs
that make you go,
Yeah. That's why this is such a juicy little mystery.
Yeah, we should have nicknamed this the CNC Music Factory, apparently.
Because, everybody's acting guilty, so there must be a guilty secret. I'm a little skeptical of the pilot error theory, although I could sort of see some ways that it could have happened, maybe. And by the way, I forgot to mention our pilot's name. He was Annano Borreo, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. Devin, you're Italian. You pronounce it.
Annano Borreo.
Okay, sounds good. He was a very experienced pilot. The plane did not crash on takeoff. Okay, so that's where pilot error can really come in. It's like you screw up, they forget to pull up quick enough or whatever, you overrun things like that. He didn't do that. He was well off and supposedly kind of safely up in the air.
Couple thousand feet.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what he could have done, but there are a few possible ways. Now, let's suppose that the engines quit, total loss of power, and let's suppose he turned the plane around and he headed back to the airport, which would be what I would do, and he was hoping to be able to glide back and get landed. And supposing he maybe chose the wrong glide path, something a bit too steep, then you can see where he might have fallen a little bit short of his objective and crashed short of the airport.
So I want to ask a question on that.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to determine this, and I don't know if you have. I mean, I read all the stuff about the fact that the plane crashed, it skipped off a building, and then it ran into the front of another building is where it crashed and caught on fire, obviously enough. But what I could never tell is which direction was it headed when it made that impact.
Well, that
theoretically, it should have been heading northish for its intended route.
Yeah.
So, but if it crashed and was heading south, that would make sense based on what you're saying.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd really like to know that too. Again, the stuff that's out there, at least the stuff that I can read or get translated by Google, doesn't really tell you a lot. It says basically it went up to 2,500 feet. Something happened. They plummeted to the ground and crashed.
And then they covered nothing but the political